I think I don't know where to go with this. To me, there's like a three-way tie at the bottom of this division on this defense. I'm not impressed with the Vikings defense. I'm not impressed with the Lions defense, and I'm not impressed with the Bears defense. The only thing, first of all, Ryan Grigson. So, you know, I'm sorry for the Vikings fans. It's mediocrity. It's like the finest mediocrity you'll ever see in the league is Ryan Grigson. He will make things look like it's going to look really good, and then the whole thing will just completely come apart at the seams. So maybe the Vikings defense is last.
It sure feels like it. I was looking through the roster and like they have a couple of names on their roster, but which is kind of what Grigson does. He puts names on the roster,
Right.
but doesn't collect talent. And so that's why I don't like this defense. That's why I think they're going to hold the Vikings back. I think the Vikings offense is going to be really good, but this defense is just not. I don't see an area they're going to improve. They are bottom 10 in almost every category. They were 13th in takeaways. Outside of that, they were 24th or worse in every other defensive category. They didn't really change anything. They didn't do anything to get the defense better. So I don't see it getting better. I think they're going to be a liability all year.
I agree. I agree completely. And when we're looking statistically, the Lions and the Bears had a couple of top tens. You're talking about everything. The Vikings was the bottom 10, except for I think they were 13th in takeaways. But the Lions and the Bears did a couple things right. The Bears statistically did better than the Lions last year. I don't know. Who do you think is third in the division defense?
I'd say the Lions, just because they don't have as much talent in any group as the Bears would have. They got Aiden Hutchinson, which is a great piece to build around for the future. But the rest of that defense, like people are talking about Jeff Okudah. Jeff Okudah has both been hurt and been burnt when he does play. So I don't really know why people are mentioning Jeff Okudah, who he's going to have a big third year. There's been no indication that Jeff Okudah is going to improve. So this defense is still going to be lackluster. I expect them to keep letting up a bunch of yards and a bunch of points. It's going to be the thing that really holds this team back, just like the Vikings, but even more so. You have Hutchinson to build around, but 2022 going to be another bad year for this defense.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So that puts the Bears at second. But Bears fans shouldn't get real excited because it's just a little bit less of a dumpster fire than the other two.
Legitimately, I mean, the defense, when you look at some of the stats from last year, they look pretty good. Like the pass yards allowed, they have a very good secondary. They still have a very good secondary. But without Khalil Mack, your pass rush isn't going to be there. You also lost Akeem Hicks in the middle. That's going to be huge for the run game. They lost the pieces that they had. And then, the two guys that you can count on that defense in the front seven are Roquan Smith and Robert Quinn. Robert Quinn, the only good year he's ever had was 2021 when he knew he was going to need a new contract in 2022. And he balled out. But it's been like a decade in the league, and he didn't do anything near what he did last year. I wouldn't expect a repeat performance when he's the number one guy on the defensive line. Roquan Smith is holding out for a contract. There's no indication that he's going to play on whatever deal that he has. He's easily the best player on that defense, the longest tenured player on that defense right now, and he deserves to get paid. I don't blame him for holding out. But either way, even if they have those guys, I don't see this defense being very good. I don't think they're going to be able to get after the quarterback, which in turn is going to hurt that really good secondary that they have. So I just think it's going to be a recipe for disaster. This is probably going to be one of the worst 10 defenses in the league this year.
Yeah. Having a great secondary is great as long as you have at least a good run defense. And what happens if you have a great secondary? I mean, with the run defense, they were in the bottom 10 in points allowed and yards rushing given up. So it doesn't matter how good your secondary is; they're just going to come in. They're going to run all over you. So now you're just paying guys that are good to not do anything because they're not going to throw the ball. So it's not going to help them. If anything, it might make it even worse. You'd be better off to have a mid-level run defense and a mid-level secondary than it would be to have one of the best secondaries and no run defense. So Bears fans don't get excited because it's going to be a long year. And then here we, at the other end of the spectrum, not only do we have an offensive juggernaut, but we got a pretty damn good defense in Green Bay.
Yeah, very good defense. When I was looking up the stats for what they did in 2021, I was surprised. I thought they were actually more of a liability. But looking back on it, they were, top 13 in every category. The worst category for them was points allowed. They were 13th in points allowed, but top 10 in everything else. And they did a lot of that without Jaire Alexander. He was hurt for pretty much the entire year. They're going to get him back. They were able to keep Rasul Douglas on the defense for the Packers, and that's huge for a secondary. So the secondary is only going to get better. And then they went out and drafted a couple of dogs from Georgia. And I think they're going to make an impact for this defense immediately. And so I think overall this defense is going to get better. I expect them to stay top 10 and everything. As long as now when we have these conversations, we're assuming they stay healthy. Assuming this defense is able to stay healthy, top 10 and everything. And I think they're just going to be a big part of what the Packers are able to do this year.
Which is a winning formula for winning the division and going deep into playoffs. And we certainly think they have the capability to do both.